Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for who you are and how you operate in our life. We love you, we honor, we praise, glorify, magnify you. In Jesus' name we pray and say amen. Okay, let me pin this. So the question that I have on the sheet is, do you trust God for your relationships? What are your thoughts? Or do you trust God, period? Any thoughts on that? Because as we're talking about the reward cycle, this is going to be an important key to this cycle. No thoughts?
Proud to. Um, I would say in the past two relationships, really my last one, I did. It was difficult, um, but I did. I don't really know what made me instead of going on my own volition, but yeah.
How did that work for you versus what you did before?
Um, I don't know. I I don't know. I can't really answer that question right now. But I'll think about it.
Okay. Anyone else want to answer that question? Do you trust God for your relationship?
I guess for me, I will trust God going into a new relationship or just going into a relationship. I will trust God. And I can say for someone with major trust issues, it's really uh it's kind of terrifying. It's terrifying. So, but I will.
Okay. Anyone else want to answer that? Okay, not seeing anyone come off mute. We'll continue. All right, so as we think about this cycle, what's going to be important to it, if you look at this cycle, you see that his love, regardless of her respect, regardless of his love. So that cycle is regardless of how that person treats you or anything. The reward cycle is doing it regardless. And that goes to the initial statement that I made when this class started, that the word for this class is unconditional. Unconditional giving, unconditional trusting, and first to obey. Those were all the things that we had talked about in the class. But really, how do you do that? How do you trust unconditionally when we are afraid to trust because of all the bad relationships and bad stuff that has happened and all the letdowns from all the people? How can we really do this trusting unconditional? That's what this reward cycle sought to show you how that can happen. And the basic principle for the reward cycle is there's a promise in it. And the promise is obedience has a reward. Obeying God will have its reward. When you disobey God, it has a reward too. With consequence, it could be negative. And so, but obedience has an award that is a good end. So do you trust, if you're in a relationship now, do you trust your mate? There's times when we might be in a relationship and we don't even trust the person that we're in. So these are three questions. You can answer any of these three since I'm not exactly sure how interactive will be, but do you trust your mate? And if you pick that one, explain if you do or don't. Do you want to give respect unconditionally? Why or why not? And have you learned the importance of unconditional in a relationship? And then explain that. So, does anyone want to answer any of these three questions?
Okay.
I'll read it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Mom?
Yep.
So I've never fully trusted anyone that I've been in a relationship with. Explain. I don't really know what more you want me to explain about that. Like why I've never trusted them or why I stayed even though I didn't trust them. Like what's the explain?
Both of those things, or either of those things. If you're with a person and with a person you don't trust, why would you stay, and what kept you there, and why the heartbreak if you didn't trust them anyway?
So, all of my previous relationships, I go into a relationship trusting you. Then you do things that make me lose trust in you. I stayed because I didn't have enough value in myself to say I deserve better than this. I would always try to explain or justify it, and or all if this then that, you know, so in the trust area. Um, why? Okay. Look. Yeah. I think this most recent relationship,
Yeah, it's okay.
ultimately the trust is what led me to leave because I'm learning how to value myself and know my worth. And so that's what helped me to leave, tying back the earlier part of your question. Involving God in my relationship is what's helped me recognize my value to be able to be strong enough to leave.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else want to tackle any of these questions?
I will look at number 3. Have you learned the importance of unconditional in a relationship? And I guess I hadn't really looked at it before this as unconditional. It was more, which it's taught us that sometimes we do things even if we don't feel like it. You know, sometimes some days it's just choosing to just really love that person. You could be upset with them about something or angered about something and that it happened, but that day you just choose to love them no matter what, and just walking in that instead of holding on to whatever happened, and being able to let go of that and then come back obviously to work through that. But I think the unconditional is a choice every day that we make in any type of those situations, in a choice to keep going with it or to keep trying or to do something maybe that step up and do something nice that even if you're not. Yes, sometimes I guess an example would be maybe you just don't feel like exercising, but you do it and you feel so much better when you're done and you know you need to do it, but sometimes you just don't feel like it. An example of what I'm trying to say there in choosing.
Yeah, what does that cost you unconditional when you've done that, made the choice? Do you think that it cost you anything?
Well, I think what's important for me in that is that I can go back and make sure that I've talked through something that might have led me to not want to do it or to not, to be feeling a certain way, to make sure to go back and talk about that in love and in respect so that it's not lingering or hanging on or building, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Latae, we're here looking at these questions and answering any of the three if you choose to. If not, we will move on to the next slide.
Well, for me,
Okay.
just kind of piggybacking off of what Miss Shelley was saying, the question that you asked her if it cost her anything, if showing the unconditional thing. So my problem is, so the first question, do you trust your mate? My problem is that I wanted to trust them and I trusted them blindly, even though they showed me that they weren't worth trusting. I still like, because I chose to be in a relationship with them, like I wanted to believe that they were trustworthy. Um, so I trusted them when I shouldn't have. And so because I trusted them, I did show the unconditional all of the things. And so I just, screwed myself because I'm giving this person something that they don't deserve, that they've shown me over and over again that they don't deserve. But my problem is I didn't trust myself enough to be like, like, what are you doing? Like I didn't trust God. I didn't have God in the picture at, well, I wouldn't say at all, but I didn't trust God. God was in the picture, but I just didn't trust. And so that is definitely the problem that I
Okay.
have, maybe. I don't know.
Um, I have learned the importance of unconditional love um, in a relationship through my relationship with God. That's my explanation. Um, that in my life circumstances, when I did a crime and I should have been in jail for that crime, God still would show me love, you know, answering my prayers, even when I got in the hole in jail for additional fight or something. Those are some times that I felt really, alone, and I knew that he was with me. And when you're in the hole, this is an example. They won't let you. They'll, they try to do you bad. They won't let you come out for 3 days to take a shower, stuff like that. I think that was like the real torture for me. But I remember just praying to God and in the room, and then officer would come over my intercom and say, "Mitchell showered," and would let me out. And it's just him saying, "Man, I know you messed up again, but I love you. Now go on and clean yourself up." And you know what I'm saying? He looked out for me. But in a relationship, and since I only have toxic examples, I just want to be honest and say that I'm human and that my love comes with conditions. And I don't have a space that I can think of ever that I've expressed unconditional love, even with my children, because once you try to do me bodily harm, you know what I mean. I'm pulling back now. I love you, but now I'm distant from you because I'm not going to let you harm me, or you know what I mean. So I feel like my own personal love, I haven't ever expressed unconditional love except for to a baby. That's it. As soon as they start becoming adults, kids start getting older, I change the way that I love them. It's more of a tough love, or that kind of thing. And so I wanted to be fair and honest in that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like though with the whole, your kid does body what rant. Yeah. That your kid does you bodily harm and you have to pull back. I don't necessarily say that that's not you showing unconditional love, right? Because I feel like sometimes I don't know. I feel like sometimes, well, it doesn't really matter. I just don't think that that means that you're not showing them unconditional love just because you're taking a step back to protect yourself. You can still show a person unconditional love without being like hovering over them all the time. I mean, I don't know. I feel like sometimes God might take a step back with us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't love us, that he doesn't unconditionally love us. He's
But he
always
doesn't. He doesn't, though. He doesn't take a step back. He never leaves us.
no,
He
he
never
doesn't.
forsakes us.
He doesn't. No, I don't think that he leaves us, but leaving and taking a step back are two completely separate things in my mind.
Right. Well, in my situation, I don't have any contact with this particular child. I don't do anything for them any longer. When I did offer, they rejected that, and so now it's like just a relationship. There isn't any relationship, and the love is still there. I still love them, but there is no ongoing relationship. And to me, that's, communication and all that good stuff. And there was another thing that um, a page said I wanted to say something about, but I can be quiet and wait.
Well, I think you can say it. I think you actually repeated with what Amanda said, which was you still love them. You're just not in their face. And that was her point is unconditional love is not always hovering and doing. I'm sure you're still praying for your child. I'm sure you still, if something happened, you'd be there.
Yeah.
But just in this case of protecting, if I mean, well, if any of my kids tried to stab me, they'd be dead. But um,
Okay, let's relax.
but you would have to step back because for your protection.
Yeah.
So go
I
ahead
like
and
what
respond to Paige.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to say something because, God teaches us what love is, in Corinthians, and something about love when she said, "I trusted blindly." You know, that's kind of like what faith is. Faith is hoping in something and not being able to see it, but believing, in it. And there's that part where it says, "Love always hopes or always trusts." And so when I think about someone saying, I got into this relationship, this marriage, and you're giving the person the benefit of the doubt, so to speak. You don't want to be judgy or overbearing or anything. You want to love them. That's what we've been instructed to do. We've been instructed to be vulnerable, to always trust. And that's just not how I am as a person. I'm not always trusting. I'm always like, that's a red flag. I'm always looking to see because of my experience. When you have a lot of experience with people being loving and kind towards you, and I'm sure that it would make it a bit easier to trust. But if you have being bitten by a few snakes, sometimes you're just, you're not going to walk in blindly. You're going to kind of have your head on swivel, and you be looking around and kind of be more aware than you normally would be, which makes you apprehensive to express love fully. And so I thought that was a beautiful thing that you trusted blindly, because that's what love does. But also, we have people around us, like we talked about in the other meeting, wisdom and stuff. And other people will say, Latae, apostles say, Latae, that ain't gonna work. But I need to be married because it's COVID. I'm not gonna be stuck in the house. I had somebody I had found, I don't know, some minister or something. And it wasn't a match, but I had somebody there to kind of walk me through it. And I think that that's when we're loving blindly, that's when it's best to have somebody whose vision isn't blurred by their love for that person at that time, to kind of help us see some of those around the corner, see some of those things that we can't see. And then the other blessed thing is we have people with discernment around us, and God gives us discernment. And then we have prophets around us who can see they're a maniac or whatever, or they're a God sent person, so that's a advantage that we have.
Good. Any other comments on these? Okay, so let's get into the material. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully, by the end of the class, we will see that the direction in our trust and the things that Late said about unconditional love, unconditional trust in First Corinthians is the direction in which you're looking. And Manda kind of alluded to that in her response as she's changing to include God more in the relationships. That's why it's going to be important to hear his voice. But let's just look at this material the way that I saw it. They put their hope in God and were submissive to their husbands. Stop. They put their hope in God. That has to be the first thing. Your hope in God. Who you're looking at. Are you looking at your husband or your wife? Are you looking at your friend? Are you looking at your dog? First thing is who you look at. And your hope is in God. And they were submissive to their husbands. They were submissive to their husbands because they're looking at God. Just as Sarah obeyed Abraham and called him Lord. And you are her children if you do what is right and refuse to give way to fear, which is another thing. When you talk about trauma and traumatic relationships, as Late talks about, when you've experienced a lot of trauma, you're not going to trust because the trauma is going to have triggers. And those triggers are going to release fear, and that fear comes with torment. The torment of this person might do this person might stab me, this person might turn me in, this person might lie on me. Whatever trauma you faced, you have to refuse to give way to fear because you're hoping God is going to be stronger than the trauma and the triggers that come. But yes, as we talked earlier in this class, we need to deal with our trauma and triggers. And I think that's how come the youth, I call them youth, but they're 30 to 40-year olds, um, want to understand about boundaries and how to set them and how to get out of them. And that's why we're going to go into the other class and talk about those boundaries so that you can understand how to set them. If you're in a relationship for 15 years without boundaries, how do you now begin to set those boundaries to begin to establish yourself as a voice in that relationship? And then husbands, in the same way, treat your wives with consideration as a delicate vessel and with honor as fellow heirs of the glorious gift of God, so your prayers will not be hindered. And so here you have the men who they have to be considered to their wives, or God's gonna not hear their prayers because, like, dude, you're not taking care of this child I've given you, this delicate flower that I've given you. You think you can mistreat her, and then you're gonna pray for a job or pray for income? Your prayers will be hindered because you're not taking care of God's child, God's gift to you. If you're going to mess up the gift of a woman that God has given you, why aren't you going to mess up everything else? So that's going to be a hindrance. And so we have to understand that both of them have to have their hope in God, even though it's in the first paragraph, it says they put their hope. So that means the woman was put the hope. There could be all women, but I would say that their hope is also husbands. Husbands, your hope has to be in God also, because with your hope in God, you can treat your wife with consideration as a delicate vessel. And some verses say weaker vessel. It's not weaker as if they have no value, but it's a delicacy. That's why I put this. They're like a flower. And you want to hold a flower. You don't want to crush a flower. And so as a man, you want to treat her with delicacy. If you are I see the kids, RJ specifically, might be playing with a kid, and if it's a girl, it's like, don't bang so hard with her. But with a boy, oh, go ahead and rough him. Go ahead and rough him up. You just go ahead. And it's because of that delicacy. We're teaching our RJ, don't treat a girl like that. Be nice, be kind. Now, RJ, we have to tell him to be nice and kind to boys and girls because he's so rough. But generally speaking, that's what you really want, the delicacy in handling that spouse. So, what's honorable and right? This is not a very clear slide, but these are the things we were talking about as it relates to right and honor. We talked about trust, we talked about love, respect, communication, shared past, um, and friendship. These are all things that can help you have a trustworthy, open communication and loving and respectful relationship. We need to have all of these bound up in our relationships. Your shared past, the reason why shared passes is important because that's connecting you to a history, and that past could be good or bad, but it's something that's connecting you and joining you so that you can understand that you have a future. And just having that friendship is going to be important, someone that you get along with, someone you don't mind spending your time with. If you're with somebody like, oh man, I can't wait till they leave, that's probably not somebody you should marry. um And if you are married and you have that feeling, you need to get to a place where what did I initially find in this person that they were my friend? And maybe you weren't ever friends. Maybe the whole thing was chemistry and all, and you just had sex and that's what got you together. The sex is going to wear out, but the friendship is what's going to have the intimacy make more important because you have a deeper and another connection besides physical. And so having a friend is going to be so important because it makes intimacy and relationships so much stronger because you care at a level that's different than just physical. Physical relationships, they can get that anywhere, but we can get that anywhere, but we can't get people who care about us, that we're comfortable around, that we want to be close to. So when you think about what's right and honorable, these are 6 characteristics that you should look for in your boundary. Do I love this person? Do I respect this person? Do I trust this person? Can I talk to this person? Can we build a shared past? Is there something in their past that we can connect with? Maybe it's something as simple as a family ties, that their families were married for 30 years or what can you share when you start building? What are some things you want to share? Maybe one of the things, when you think about boundaries and shared past, one of the things might be important is that they are a Christian, that's something that you want. Another shared past is maybe something that kids, they don't want kids, never wanted kids, and you want 50 kids. That's probably not going to be the one that you need to marry because that's not a shared adventure or a shared goal that you have. And it becomes because of maybe their past that they had horrible experience as a child and they don't want to bring a child in, and you had a great experience as a child and you want to bring a child. Those are things you talk about so that you can begin to build on what their past was. That should be something that's in your boundaries. And then, of course, friendship is something. So if you're thinking about, and we'll be thinking about this more, setting boundaries, these are some, not all, but these are some categories that you can start thinking about. What are my boundaries around friendship? What are my boundaries? Like, who do I respect? How do I respect a person? Who's a man that I can respect? Who's a woman that I can love? What does that look like? Because you have to understand your desires and have God help you understand those desires so that when you're picking a mate, these boundaries are coming into play and helping you move forward in that relationship. And anytime if you have questions, of course, come off mute and just talk. So we talked about trust, the barriers, and I saw this wall in between these two people that you're trying to reach each other, and for whatever reason, you just can't because of trust is a boundary. And these boundaries are set for fear. The fear is like it just won't work. I've been in other relationships and it won't work, so why even bother? Father or mother issues, past relationship with parents could have some trust issues because of your upbringing. It could have trust issues if you have daddy issues or mommy issues. That can bring fear and mistrust into relationships because if you haven't had a father figure as a woman and your father, you could never trust your father. Now you have an issue trusting men and you bring that daddy issue into your relationship and you reflect your daddy issue on this person. And now there you go. You have this barrier in between you. And so those mommy daddy issues have to be taken care of. Feeling alone or abandoned can make you have trust issues. Of course, having fights and arguments, unhealthy arguments, will have you have barriers because if every time you ask the person something, it's about a fight, you're fighting all the time, you can't trust somebody you're fighting with all the time. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense. And so, why are we in this relationship if we're constantly fighting? Or can't we agree on anything? No, we can't agree. You can't even agree to agree as it turns into a fight. that's going to have you have trust issues because you can't really express yourself if everything's an argument. You got to fight for everything. Sooner or later, the fight will become silence and you will no longer be moved by anything because you're just remaining silent because it's easier. And that's not a good relationship. That's a communication boundary violation. And so you have to fix that violation. Feeling defeated, you quit because it's too hard. And many times, the dating scene that we see and that we have, quitting makes it easy. Quitting is the easy out. But when you're really talking about a covenant and being in a relationship with someone, my first question that I generally ask people in the marriage counseling ceremony is, what will it take for you to break up with this person? And they give you a whole laundry list of why they would quit. And that's because we've been conditioned to quit. The right answer to that question is nothing, because this is unconditional. A covenant means that I will stay in here if you don't. And so we have to overcome that feeling of quitting. How do we stand in this? And you stand in it by understanding your boundaries and letting people closer and closer in as trust is built more and more. But if you don't trust a person, you can never get to this point of not quitting because you'll just continue to sink further and further in the hole and just begin to put up with stuff, and you quit on yourself, you quit on the relationship, and now you're just existing. You shouldn't just be existing in a relationship. You should be thriving in a relationship. Filled with darkness. The person or you can be having spiritual attacks, which causes a trust barrier. If you're in two different spiritual realms, believe in two different things spiritually, that darkness can overcome your relationship and cause barriers of trust. If you're full of self, if it's all about you, it's not about them, of course, that's going to be a trust barrier because you're walking in pride. Fail to forgive. That's going to be a big trust issue because now you're walking in a relationship that if I do anything wrong, they're not going to forgive me. And unforgiveness is going to block the blessing and block your relationship. If we walk in unforgiveness, that's going to be a trust barrier because we all are going to do stuff wrong in a relationship. I don't care how perfect they are. No one's perfect. And so we have to realize that forgiveness has to be part of the package because we're going to fall short of expectations. We're going to fall short of our needs. We're going to fall short of our promises. But how you rebound from that is going to be important. And then full of doubt. Despite effort, nothing changes. So again, you become defeated. And number 10 is fail to believe God. And when you don't believe God, you begin to operate in disobedience. So those are 10 barriers to take into account that this wall that is in between your relationship. If you have two or three of these on the list, you might want to begin to tackle those so that you can get healed from them. And if all of them are on the list, you need to schedule a session with me because we got some work to do before you get in a relationship. um, so barriers to trust. The main barrier is you don't trust God. If you don't trust God, how can you're probably not trusting you, and you surely can't trust anyone else. And so we have to learn that this reward cycle is foundational in trusting God. And how do you can break the barrier? If you love those who love you, it says, what reward do you have? It's easy to love people that love you. It's easy to love people that like you. It's easy to when everything's easy. But the true reward of love and what makes love and relationships so awesome is when you fight and you argue healthfully and you get through it. It's like being in a war. Your battle buddy becomes like so close when you've been through something. You've had that, remember that shared history that said that makes a boundary? That shared history of overcoming that challenge is going to make that couple trust each other. You lose that business and you stand by him anyway, even when everyone says, "Oh, you should leave him because he's whatever." That shared experience of how you made it through. I was in a conference this weekend, and the guy said he used the word cashectomy, which means that he had all of this money and he lost his cash three times. And I'm talking about he was a millionaire and he lost his money three times. And he said it was so important because his wife was right there beside him, never gave up on him, never stopped believing in him, and her belief helped him to get up every time. And now he's up again and in a circle of, making millions again. That reward of sticking by them, even when things are broken down, will encourage that relationship and encourage that person, man or woman. If someone is by your side and they're a friend, you're going to do everything to kind of keep that friendship alive so that you can bounce back. So don't do it for you or them. You do it for him. Him is God. You're going to trust God. And that's how come it's going to be important for you to hear God and trust God. Relationships are like this. Somebody comes in your life, my life. God, what are you saying about this person? You know, he's not your husband, or he's this, he's this. Find out with God who this person is, because he'll tell you. He'll tell you if this is your husband. He'll tell you if this isn't your husband. He'll let you know, but you have to ask him and you have to trust him for the response. Don't interpret a delay as defeat. That means if you ask God, is this my husband? And he doesn't answer you right now, just wait. And as you're waiting, continue to test your boundaries, to look at those things that you've set, to trust God that he has heard your prayer. But you have to break through that barrier so that you trust God even with the output. Even when you haven't heard anything, trust that he's heard you and he will answer. Don't look to be blessed, but look for ways to bless. Look for ways to help the other person. Don't say, if I do this, you do that. I think that's what Late said. It's kind of a payment system. No, if you want to trust, you have to learn to look, how can I bless this person? How can I do something to make that person happy or joyful? Not because you want it back, but because you want to pour out. That's really about the reward system. The reward is you're giving out unconditional, not because you're going to get it back. Don't put relationships before God. A lot of times that happens. If we do, man will become our best reward. What that means, if your relationship is what you're trying to get, and that's all you're trying to get is this relationship, oh, and I'll include God later, then you put the relationship before God, and that has become your idol. We have to make sure that we have a right mindset. There shall be no other gods before me. Little g gods, little g God, your time, your people, money, anything that you put before God is an idol. And if you want to trust God with you, you have to make sure there's nothing in between you and God to hinder that relationship so that you can understand that God will help you break through those barriers of mistrust because you're trusting Him. I know I've put things on the line and I said, God, I don't want to do this, but you said it, so I'm going to trust you. And when that thing happens, and I could say, God, I told you that was going to happen. But instead, I can say, God, you said that I can trust you. So I'm not going to think about it. You've got to fix it because my trust was in Him, not the thing or not the person. My trust was in God. And so if something breaks over here and my trust is in God, he has to do what he does. And I have to wait on him to fix whatever it is. And I'm telling you, he always has. He's come through in ways that are remarkable because I trust him. And that as you trust God more and He shows up more and more in your life, that trust is going to start growing more and more and more because that's how you build trust. You put more leaning on the relationship. On any relationship, that's how it grows. You put something in the hands of the person you trust, they don't let you down, and you grow. If they do let you down, what happened? What's going on? Did I do something wrong? How can we fix this so it doesn't? And having that conversation and finding out, oh yeah, I did mess up. Yeah, that was my bad. Okay, let's do this again. And that's how your trust is built with God and with people. So be faithful. Be faithful to serve. Do it as a faithful servant. Serve people because it's out of your service to God, not out of service to them. Don't confuse logic, love, or respect when you think it seems right with loyalty. So that means what? You're thinking if I respect this person and I do these things, then I'm being loyal. You're using your brain. Your logic is not what you want. Logic is not loyalty. You're loyal to the person, you're loyal to God because that's who you are. It's not what you think, it's who you are. Your very being is to be loyal to this relationship, loyal to God, seeing that I'm not going to quit, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to stick in here. That again is how trust is going to be built. That's how those barriers are going to be built up. And let me say this also. If you're working with a boundary and you find yourself breaking it all the time, there's two different things. Either it's not true boundary for you, or it's not really important for you. So why is it even a boundary? If you have a boundary that you aren't loyal to, then it should not be a boundary, because if you're going to break your own boundary, if you're not going to be loyal to your own boundary, why would someone else be? Because you're the one that has to enforce your boundaries. And so don't use logic on your boundaries. Well, if they did this, I can forgive that. No, that's using logic. Don't use logic. Be loyal to your boundaries. That's why you set your boundaries before you have the relationship, because your boundaries should not be changing. You might have different boundaries for different relationships. I might have different relation if it's a intimate relationship that I'm seeking. I may have a different set of boundaries than I have for someone that's going to be my friend or someone that's going to be a ministry partner. So you can have different boundaries for different relationships. Because each type of relationship, people are getting closer and closer and closer. So, for example, my friendship boundary is going to have to be satisfied before this person even begins. I begin to even think about this person be intimate relationship boundaries. So you have a lot to go through before you even get to the place of being an intimate relationship, because you got to pass all my friendship boundaries first. And so don't think that you have one set of boundaries, one and done. There's different levels of trust. There's different levels of boundaries. There's different levels of how you execute those boundaries. Okay? And don't do our part to appease. Don't do things to appease men or God. Don't just back down and say, okay, that's called an obligation. Do it because you want to please God first and please man. When you start doing things out of obligations, those obligations after a while will strangle you. You don't do things to appease people. If you are a people pleaser, you will have a problem with this, because people pleasers give in to men because they just don't want people to be angry with you. We got to get over. That's a wound. If you're people pleasing, that's something we have to get over so that you can actually walk and do the pleasing thing to God, not the appeasing thing for men. Okay? So this is the true reward. It said it so many times in the book about goodwill, that this person had goodwill towards me. If you're in an argument with your boyfriend, okay, he hates me, and that's your thought. No, your thought should be, I know that he has goodwill towards me, that he's not doing this out of spite. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. The author repeated that over and over and over again. So serve with goodwill as to the Lord and not to men. That's the part that he didn't necessarily say. Your goodwill, you can say that Charlie didn't mean to hurt me, but If you're trusting God that He has Charlie in your life for a particular reason, your goodwill is being put forward because God says that Charlie's supposed to be in your life. And so, therefore, I know He didn't mean to do that to hurt me because I know God wouldn't put this person in my life to destroy me. That's how come having God and hearing Him in your relationship is going to be important. As to the Lord and not men, because you know, let me get this out the way, at the Lord will reward each one of us whatever good he does, whatever he is slave, whether he is slave or free. So we just want to have goodwill. So what of course what I did is I put words to this so you can have goodwill towards other people. Are you going to be gentle? Are you going to be open in your communication? Will you obey God? Don't be selfish. Are you willing to submit? Is intimacy going to be important to you? Is loyalty important to you? And love is important. If you do these goodwill steps, you will be rewarded for your steps towards your reward. Don't stop short of this goodwill steps to be rewarded in your relationship with God first and then with others. Any questions on anything I've stated so far? No comments?
Also, I just wanted to highlight something you're talking about. You're talking about something doesn't matter to you if you break your own rules or you go against your own. I don't know what words you said, but I was thinking like your moral compass, the boundaries that you set for yourself. You previously to that, you spoke about. There was something else I triggered a thought in me about not putting the person before God,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I'm seeing that I did that in my relationship, and I've seen other people do that, both men and women. And in those situations, that person becomes your idol, they become your god, and because of that, I'm sad to say that my boundaries that I had put in place, that I hadn't let anything, no other relationships were, nobody else could get away with that. That particular person was able to get away with because I had compromised. Those were the words I wrote down. I wrote idolatry and compromise, and that I felt like I began to worship the creature more than the creator, and that I compromised my morals, my what I believed in to appease this person. And in that, as I explained in the past, I lost myself and I became like them, where I
Mm-hmm.
would do the, try to one up them in negative ways. You cheat on me, well, I'm going to cheat back. And there's this new thing that people talk about. They're going to match your energy, which means they're going to do to you what you do to them rather than show the love that God has taught us to. That's what's in the young people's mind now, matching energies. But I don't want to match that because whatever it's really a spirit they're talking about. I don't want to match a spirit of adultery or vengeance or violence. You know what I'm saying? But that at that time in my life, that's what happened because I committed idolatry, compromised, and then ended up, in that space. And so I just wanted to throw that out there that you lose yourself. And it's not because I didn't care, it's because I was submitted to this false God and I was going along with what they said. So I just wanted to share that because I did care. And the real me was in there saying, good and well, this don't make no sense. But obey, and follow let your husband lead you and stuff like that. There are ways that I try to justify it, but it wasn't right, it wasn't balanced, and I was deceived. I deceived myself, I should say.
And we do that because we were created for relationship. It is not good for man to be alone. But when you compromise to be with someone who you are, where you can't be yourself, then you're not being true to yourself anyway. You're being somebody else. And so it's never good being in a relationship being somebody else because that's not who you are. And so you're not really giving the person who you really are anyway. You're giving them a fake sense of self, so you're deceiving the person. And then one day you'll mature, you'll wake up, and you'll change. And the person will like, what happened to you? You've changed. I don't like this new person. Well, they like the false you because you were killing yourself in a relationship. And as you get older, you start putting up with a lot less because as you mature, different things become important. And so, yeah, they're going to wake up one day and you're going to just say, look, enough is enough. And I would say, if we get our boundaries and understand our value, I think like Manda was saying that she's learning her value and understanding our worth and not have that worth be defined by however we used to define it, but by knowing that we're valuable because we're created in the image of God and no one's going to put me down. No one's going to put me in a box. No one's going to step on me and treat me like a carpet. No one's going to talk to me like that. And it's not being boastful, it's being walking in the authority because you're created in the image of God. And no one should make you feel like you're less because that's not what God says about you. So that's good. Don't do relationships to appease. Do it to please God. That's what Lette was speaking to with the last slide. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Uh-huh.
I really liked that about well, I love what Late was saying because in a marriage of 40 years and having both of us have changed a lot, it's uh it's good to be reminded that we have to be careful not to make each other our idols. But I like the compromise part because if we're compromising who we are to be lifting one another up and encouraging each other in our walk with the Lord and trying to help better that and not looking expecting the other person to be doing things for us or idolizing them in that. But also I loved what Amanda had to say because I was just talking about that with about my granddaughter because she's 13 and feeling abandoned right now. And I just was really praying about her, wanting her to so know her worth and her value. And I loved how Amanda said that because when you know your worth and your value and how much the Lord loves us, it's so important and you can have that security and be walking in that. And I've found too that the closer that I get to the Lord and the more I fall in love with him and love him and spending that time with getting intimate and getting a better relationship with him, it's helping me in all my it's helping me with my husband relationship and my other relationships. And so yeah, it's just so important to know that value in him and that we're his and he loves us so much.
Yeah, that's how come, getting to know yourself is going to be so important, particularly if you have, and we all have been exposed to trauma and drama, and our eyesight has gotten off because of the trauma and the hurts and the pains and bad
And why I
relationships.
say
Go ahead.
what the reason why I say trusting God is a part of it is because my issue is my logic steps in. And I know that, you talked about that before. Like I can rationalize, pretty much anything. So just trusting trusting God, I don't have to put logic in there. Like I don't need to think about anything except for trust God. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I think that page, this goes back to kind of the dream that I had about you just listening.
Yeah,
Just shut your mind up and
right.
just listen. That's
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that dream was for me too. Shut up and listen.
I think that dream is for all of us. because we can all talk ourselves into a mess
Yeah.
of a relationship. And if we
Yeah.
would just sit down and shut up and listen more than talking and thinking, we would save ourselves so much
I think
heartache.
that that's the getting closer to God, how it helped me recognize my value is because, sometimes I would do something, right? Or I would think something, and either I would say it's crazy, or the person I'm with would say it's crazy, or you're overthinking, or this or that. And like, no, I would have someone, a voice tell me, you know what, Amanda, no. You're not crazy. You're not overthinking. This is legit. And just like not just listening to the voice, but trusting it and
Yeah.
following it is extremely important. And my mom always tells me that I know that it's God talking to me because I have this over overwhelmingly feeling sense of peace. That's how I know it's not just some my subconscious coming to light. It's the peace that I get with the voice and the direction that I'm getting that I'm like, okay, you, that is right. I'm not crazy. I'm not overthinking because honestly, I do feel like sometimes God be like, well, Amanda, kind of, you might want to take it back sometimes, but because I can overdo it. But still, whatever it is, just listen and trust that it is from coming from God is extremely important.
Hmm. Any other comments? Okay, so why should we trust and obey? I think you guys had really good input on this. Be willing to be purified and not purged. When you trust God, you're going to feel like sometimes that it's hard. It's a hard place, like you're going through a fire. But that fire, you have to remember you're purified through fire. And what God is trying to burn off is that old mindset, that old way of doing things, of appeasing people, being a people pleaser. All of those things were comfortable. Um, am I still there? Okay. Looks like I froze. Um, we have to understand that that purifying fire is a good thing and not a bad thing. Nothing we do is wasted. If you pass or if you fail, God's going to use everything for his glory. So trust him with it. Even when you think you've made the worst mistake in your life, and trust me, I've made a lot of bad mistakes, but he's turned it around for my good because I learned something from those mistakes. The crisis of faith overcome by disobedience. We have a lot of people that are not walking by faith, and it's a crisis even in the church. We can overcome this crisis by obeying the voice, not just listening to the voice, but actually obeying the voice. That's going to be so important. Prove he is Lord in our life. We have made him God, but is he Lord? Is he lording over your life? Is he in the driver's seat? Do we give him permission to have your way with us, or are we like, I give you this part, but this I got this, I can take care of this. But you can have that. No, Lord over your life, prove that he is. Give him that question, give him that part of your heart, give him that brokenness, give him that success, because that's when you truly will learn to grow in the trust of him. um, Find your sufficiency, acceptance, security, and significance in Christ, not people. That goes back again to what Manda was saying about, she's starting to find some value. I remember was a time in my life where I hated myself. I literally hated myself. And since I hated myself, of course, I would hate everyone around me. But when I found out that I'm accepted by God, I got secure with my identity. I understand my significance in Christ, that He was sufficient for me. I got a boldness I actually started liking myself. Now I love myself. I mean, it's like, no, and no, I'm not putting up with that. Check, bye. There's just certain things I'm not going to put up with because I value me too much that no, I'm not going to let you do that to me. That's not going to happen. Because I know my value. And that comes from maturity. And that maturity is demonstrated by standing on your yes or your no, and not feeling bad about it. And then being responsible. When you make a mistake, when God tells you to go right and you went left, be responsible, repent, say you're sorry, pick yourself up, and then just don't do it again. And that's when you begin to have an inner freedom and a release inside. And when you have that inner freedom and release inside, your outside relationships have less conflict. If your inside voice and your outside actions are in agreement, you're not going to be in conflict. You're going to be you're going to be the best you that God's created for you. But when you have an outside voice and an inside voice and they're clashing, that's going to be so confusing, so tiring. So much thinking is going to happen, and you're going to exhaust yourself. You won't even be able to make a decision because you're always fighting you before you can even get it out. So cultivating trust in God, even in crisis situation, is going to be important. Serve one another. I think what Late says, or somebody said, or maybe it was Shelley, that you use this relationship not only with your husband, but with your kids, with your grandkids, with your co-workers. When you get into that point of wanting to help one another instead of hurting one another or making it all about you, you will see that trusting God and the reward from trusting Him will make all the difference in the world. The keys to the reward cycle. Success is not about never failing, but being able to get up after a fall or a failure together. So when you're in a relationship, that togetherness makes a difference. Regardless if you fall or fail, get back up, start again, wipe yourself off. Don't keep bringing it up. Okay? His unconditional love for his wife reveals his unconditional love for Christ. That is the reward. We can be unconditional to our spouses because we are unconditional with God. That's going to be the winner here. When we love God unconditional, when we respect God, we're able now, because He's poured that on us, that we're able to push it out on other people. Her unconditional respect reveals her reverence for Christ. What are our actions revealing about Christ? Are our actions revealing that we love and reverence Him? Or are our actions showing that we don't love and don't reverence Him? When we have all of these conditions that we put on people, it's because we have all those conditions we're putting on God. Let God be God and learn to love Him for who He is and not who we want Him to be. In an ultimate sense, our marriage has nothing to do with our spouse. It has everything to do with our relationship to Jesus Christ. If you would remember that in your marriages, in your to be marriage, that once you understand it's that tripart being where it's you and Christ and you're coming to one, which I'll show you in a kind of a slide later, that oneness is what God wants us to come into. We will fail at love and respect, but when love and respect for Christ, we start again with our spouse. So what does that mean? We're going to fall short of unconditional. We're not going to get it 100% right. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to get angry. We're going to get into ourselves. But if we love Christ and we respect Christ, that's going to say, okay, I messed up. Let's try this again. Instead of saying, let's quit, we're going to say, let's try this again. Honey, I'm sorry for what I said. I know I disrespected you. I don't know. I was crazy. I got up on the wrong side of bed. Whatever. Let's start this again. Don't look to do unconditional perfectly, but perfectly look to God to fix it so that you can get mature in your love and respect. Marriage is a tool and a test to deepen and demonstrate our love and reverence for the Lord. The hardest thing, marriage is hard, and to become one is a hard thing. It's a lifetime of learning. Um, I was married for 26 years, and I didn't learn all the lessons. I didn't learn all the things that I was supposed to have learned. But I can tell you for sure, it was the hardest relationship I ever had in my life because two people becoming one is the hardest thing that you will ever do in your life. And it's a constant work that you have to work at it. We will be tested for our testimony. That's how come God gives us these tests. It's for our testimony. What is our testimony? I tell people when I do marriage counseling all the time that my first thing is, hey, I'm a divorcee, but God told me to do this marriage stuff, so I'm doing it out of obedience to Him. I don't really know who's going to listen to me, but this is what God's called me to do. And most often, when people take my counseling, it's because they want to know the good things and the bad things, and maybe God just also tells them that this I'm the counselor for them. So but I'm pretty upfront. I don't have 40 years in a successful marriage, but I certainly have learned a lot about marriage since I've been married and since I've been off. And I can definitely say I've saved a lot of marriages. And I used to get mad like, God, how come you're letting me save other people's marriage, but you won't let me save mine? We've had that argument, but I have peace over the situation. It is what it is, and so I trust him. I trust God with everything. So our response to the test is our responsibility, not our spouses. When you're tested in your marriage, when you're tested in your relationship, don't blame the other person. Take responsibility for your part and grow in the test in your part. You can't grow in theirs, but you surely can grow in yours. And so the wisdom keys for reward is unconditional love and respect is the major key. So we have to do this. Okay, so when the heat is applied, when you get in trouble, the way to come out is don't you can either go into the fire with pride or praise. That's how you're going to use this slide. You want to show gratitude as an attitude. You can either blame or be responsible. We reveal each other's weaknesses and be responsible over those weaknesses. We can have a victim's mindset or a victor's mindset. A victor's mindset sees hope. A victim's mindset sees hopelessness. When we go into the fire, we want to come out with a victor's mindset, not a victim's mindset. Pearls seen in trials, or do we see pearls? Pearls is this bad thing as opposed to pearls, those things that are made to see your value. You have value. Value is going to come out of that fire. You can be sinful response or you can have a godly response in conflict. When the heat is on, are you going to be starting to cuss and fuss and yell? That's going to be a sinful response. Or are you going to be godly, showing gentle? Remember, that's the first step in goodwill. Be gentle, be open in communication, obey God, do the things that are showing goodwill towards somebody during conflict. Are you going to blame and shame, or are you going to have an inner freedom and take responsibility? And finally, power and control, or are you going to have power and submission? Both of those things are power, are based on power, but you don't want to have control, but you want to learn how to submit. Uh, your spouses can affect us but not control us. You can't say, my spouse made me do something. When you submit to God and you're submitting, they can't make you do things. We're making a choice to do things. And so, really, when you're going in the fire, remember these 6 points and take the high road, take the goodwill road, not the other road. That was supposed to be taken out. So the unconditional, I'm going to get you guys these bracelets. I ordered them, but they won't be here. It says when two becomes one in the book, it says her pink and his blue become their purple. And so I'm getting you guys these purple bands that says unconditional to let you understand that even though you have different views, one purple, one blue and one pink, when you come together and include God, there's a oneness that happened. And that oneness is unconditional. That's going to be represented on this band. And I'll send you this band if you're not in the area. so that you can understand when you're in a relationship this unconditional. Oneness will be experienced when each of us, in our own way, look to God and be obedient to Him. And as that triangle begins to be squeezed together, you become oneness. Oneness does, and becoming one means that you're still different, but because of the covenant, you are walking together as a single thing. That's how you become one. You come together and your upward and your outward to everyone else becomes one thing. So, these, in conclusion to this class, are the things that we said we wanted to learn. These are the areas that we've covered in the book. We're going to do Unbound to kind of do this, how to set boundaries, and kind of drill into that a little bit more. But all the other questions about what you wanted to learn has been covered. I had to make sure that all of your questions were covered. And so I made sure I did that, and I said where those things were covered. And so Paige will mail out this slide once I get it to her, and you can ask any questions or anything that you have at this point. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a comment.
Uh-huh.
The visual that I got for when you talked about two becoming one, I of course I envisioned when I got married. And I don't know if you guys follow Marvel characters and such and DC Comics and stuff, but the vision that I seen, and if you guys have seen these movies, you'll know, was from the movie Venom. And Venom is like the dark version of a Spider-Man. It's an alter ego type thing. It's created from this goop, alien goop crap. And it sticks to the Spider-Man guy and this reporter guy. And he's like, it's black. And he's like trying to pull this thing off, can't get it off. And then, once he allows that personality or that spirit is what I'm using. Once he becomes one with that thing talks for him. It eats people. I mean, it's a devourer. It's not a good guy, you know? And it's just like he's in there, you know what I'm saying? He's fighting. And even when he's walking around, it's just the effect of how when you intermingle with the wrong person, he can hear him still, even though he's not showing on him. He can hear him loud and clear. It's such a loud voice. And that's what I seen when I was like, ooh, don't become one with that wrong one. Don't become one with Venom, because that's what it was to me. It was a venomous, poisonous, um, situation I was in. And so I'm always gonna share that perspective because people said it was wanted and needed. And I felt like, God, I'm being negative. I just want to be that alarm, that sounding alarm, that person that says the hard stuff of you want to become one with that person that's filled with that the beautiful Holy Spirit that's loving and kind and gentle. And there's this worldly couple, Tiana Taylor and this movie star guy she's with. I don't know his name. He's light skinned with green eyes, but she described how he treated her. She came out of a bad marriage with another star, like a cup of tea. How delicate, how you're talking about RJ and they have to tell the kids to be calm. She was saying that he treated her like a cup of tea. You know how careful we are with tea. We don't want to spill it. We sip it. We're very careful, and I just said, wow, that is such a good, picture that she gave us to say, I would like to be treated that way and valued, not to spill, not to, and so I just wanted to share that visual that I had about merging with the wrong person and trying to get that black tar looking stuff off of you, and it's just on you. And then when you think they're gone and you're not near them, it's still aching in your ear. You know what I'm saying? So that's all pretty much I was going to share. Not to become one with with venom.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's codependency, which is another bad way to become one. That's not really the way that we want to become one. So thank you. Any other comments? Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for this class as we end love and respect and start a new journey on our new assignment. We thank you for those that consider it wise to read the book and to attend these sessions. We love you, we honor and praise you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.